Hello, everyone, and welcome in to another episode of the RTI and VR2 Recruiting Podcast. I'm Nathaniel Rutherford, the managing editor of RockyTopInsider.com, and I'm joined again by the guys over at Vols Recruiting Reports, Matt Ray and Brandon Martin. And this will be still mostly kind of a recruiting-focused podcast. We try to keep this one kind of exclusively recruiting-focused because, obviously here at Rocky Top Insider, we do have a regular RTI podcast with some more football stuff, and then of course the guys at Vols Recruiting Reports, that they may have recruiting as the title of their name, their site, but they do other actual football related stuff too. So we try to keep this as kind of recruiting specific as possible. But with what happened on Saturday, I know we're actually going to talk about the game in a little bit and talk about just some other stuff. So this will be recruiting specific, but it'll be also some other stuff going on. But I think one way to kind of marry the two topics, guys, is to talk about what Saturday's result, the historically bad loss to Georgia State, how that affects Tennessee's recruiting. 'Cause I've been asked by a couple different people on Twitter. I've seen people kind of reacting on online and stuff about not just the game itself, but what the game, how that affects Tennessee's future with this 2020 recruiting class. Does it really hurt Tennessee's recruiting class? Does it does this kind of irreparably damage Tennessee's chances with other some of these high profile players like a Noah Sewell or a Savell Smalls or a Raheem Jarrett? And I can want to get to him more specifically in a second, but I'll ask you, Matt and Brandon, first. I'll get your thoughts, Matt, and then Brandon, once he's done, you feel free to chime in too. But you guys obviously have talked. I've talked with a decent amount of recruits, but you guys obviously talk with a lot more recruits than I have, and I'm curious if you had a chance to really reach out to any of the recruits after the game or not. But even if you haven't, Matt, what is your opinion? Because I'm under the impression that this game isn't the end-all be-all for Tennessee's 2020 class. It's not going to me, this loss doesn't irreparably damage Tennessee's relationship with any of these high-profile guys, but it makes it all the more important that you go out and this upcoming Saturday against BYU and get a victory, and then also look good in the majority of your SEC games and still somehow find a way to get to a bowl game. We can debate whether that's going to happen, but Matt, I'm curious on your thoughts about how Saturday's game, really, how does it affect what Tennessee's trying to do on the 2020 recruiting trail?
It's going to be big, 7 o'clock game on ESPN. Just got your teeth knocked down your down your throat. You've really got to try to find a way to get up off the mat. That's the big question. Can you get up off the mat? BYU is not Georgia State, period. They would probably beat Georgia State and maybe beat them handily. Who knows? But you're going to face an opponent that's pretty good, that fans have been excited about since it came out on the schedule. A good week 2 challenge, find out what you're looking like heading into Florida. Most expect you to be 1-0 going into that game. So it's going to be big in the aspect that recruits are going to be watching how these guys bounce back. A lot of freshmen and sophomore played. That appeals to guys. Laneith Whitehead, it appealed to him. Saw a lot of guys out there. Saw Henry Toa out there. Saw Warren Burrell out there. Guys he knows. Guys he's been around. So it's going to be big. Is it the end-all, be-all? No, but boy, you could get yourself in a lot of trouble if you come out flat and lay an egg. The end-all, be-all for me right now in this class, and I published an article about it this morning, probably around 10 o'clock. And it said, where do you go after Saturday? Can the Vols get back up off the mat after a devastating blow? If no, where do you turn? And the answer is to the future of the program. And that was the intro into an article on Harrison Bailey where he discussed his top targets, why he can't wait to get to Tennessee, and a whole lot more. The end-all, be-all is if you lose Harrison Bailey in this class. That is the guy that is holding this class together. That's been the glue. You have to still be able to sell what you're doing to Harrison Bailey. Can you do that with a 2-10 team? I don't know. But if you come out Saturday and you're flat and you get pushed around, punched around, and just look overall bad, and that fan base is out of there by halftime, which would be understandable. Believe me, it would be understandable. It's going to start getting hard to hold on to guys. Now, you come out, you maybe lose a close one. there's so many ways you can go with it. It's just going to be how Tennessee's attitude is. I do believe is what's going to be the main determiner this weekend. If you come out and put up a fight and you get beaten in an absolute dogfight, yeah, I wouldn't expect anybody to jump off the boat. But if you come out and you get embarrassed again on national TV where all the recruits can watch you, you're going to find yourself in some trouble.
Brandon, I'm curious. That was talking a little bit more about the BYU game and how important that is. I'm curious in your thoughts on this actual, on this past weekend's game too. I agree with what you said, Matt. I think that this game upcoming against BYU, it's been pivotal for a lot of reasons, but specifically on the recruiting trail, I think it's very important. But Brandon, what about this past weekend's game? Is this loss one that's just gonna turn some of the high profile guys off, or how are you looking at it?
I think it's a loss that absolutely got everybody's attention. Tennessee made national headlines all over SportsCenter. Were the center of the attention for the national media for all the wrong reasons. And that's not good. It's not a good look. You don't want to be that. You don't want to be the team getting upset by a team you have no business getting upset by. And this was not a fluke play. This was not some bad breaks going Tennessee's way. Let's call this what it is. Georgia State came out and whipped Tennessee on both sides of the ball. Offense, defense, they showed up. They wanted it worse than Tennessee in Knoxville. They ate Tennessee's lunch for them on television, and it's a bad look. Do I think this game is going to make a huge impact? This one game, it's the worst loss in the history of the program. I stand by that. I think this is the worst loss in the history of the program. But if it was a one-game anomaly, if this was just the team needing a wake-up call or not preparing or thinking they could roll over these guys or needing to expose some guys that you need to get out of the program or the coaches need to get their heads on straight, there's so much blame to go around. But whatever, if it was just a one-time thing that happened and you come out and end the season at a respectable season, if you can sniff 6-6, I think you've still got a chance with some guys. I think it hurts you maybe with the Darnell Washingtons, the Noah Sewells, although Noah Sewell seemed to really enjoy his interaction with Tennessee and seems really to still be high on Tennessee. So I don't, maybe it's not as big a deal to Sewell as it is as I think. I think it could be a big deal for Savell Smalls. I think it could be a big deal for Washington. Sewell seems like he's okay, though. The issue comes in with, what if this is not an isolated incident? If what we saw Saturday is what this team is for the season, boys, I'm going to be honest with you. You could be looking down the barrel of a 1-11 season, because that's the second worst team on our schedule. A lot of people have UAB chalked up as a W, and UAB ended last season in the top 25. They spent most of last season in the top 25, and their offense is good. It is really good. If Tennessee comes out and plays like they did Saturday the rest of this season, 1-11 could happen. That's not doom and gloom. That's not negative. This is facts. That was the second worst team on the schedule, and they punched us in the mouth, and we laid down and couldn't take it. Now, let's say Tennessee has a respectable season. Let's say this was an anomaly. They get their heads on straight. Respectable season. Right now, Tennessee has got 15 guys committed, and I think most of those guys are very firm commitments. I think most of those guys understood there's going to be some ups and downs. I don't think they realized it was going to be quite that sharp a down. But the 15 guys they've got on the boat are really solid. The two guys that I think might be impacted by that would be the two guards, Javonte Spraggins and Robinson. Mm-hmm. I think those two guys could be impacted by that. But you've seen guys like Keyshawn Lawrence, coming out with 20 to the top things. You've seen guys like Mordecai McDaniel, shooting guys down when they're trying to make fun of UT, saying, this is where I'm going. I'm in here, I'm sure. The guys they have in the class, I feel like, for the most part, are really solid, and I think we'll probably keep Spraggins and Robinson. It's adding some of these other guys. We've talked a lot about the guys that Tennessee could add. If they're going to take 25 this year, you've got 10 spots left. We've talked about how do you fill those other 10 spots? A couple of weeks ago, we felt really good about how they would fill that out. Now, this loss is definitely going to hurt them with some of those guys coming out and looking like the team we expected to see and maybe beating BYU convincingly. That doesn't make this week go away. It doesn't make the worst loss in program history go away. But you're able to say, hey, look, this is just something that happened. Everything that Georgia State did and bullied Tennessee with, which is their defensive line, their offensive line, and their run game, BYU is much, much better at than Georgia State. Much better. BYU's front seven is outstanding. BYU's offensive line is very, very good. Their running game is very good. BYU is perfectly capable of coming in, and if Tennessee plays like they did against Georgia State, BYU will beat them like a drum. It could get bad. We need to see, is what we saw Saturday Tennessee, is that who these Volunteers are, or was this an anomaly? If it's an anomaly and they can still get to a 5-7, 7-5, somewhere in that window, I think you can still land some elite recruits, even some of the West Coast guys. If that's what it is, and we're talking like 5-7 to 2-10, you're not going to land any of those guys, and that might be enough to start seeing some of the guys on the boat now jump ship.
Yeah, I think you made an interesting point there talking about some of the guys who are currently committed and their commitment level or whatever, and I think you're right. I think, the vast majority of the 15 guys committed in this class, I think they'll stick around, even if you have, like you said, just a really bad season, another 5-7 season, or heck, maybe even 4-8. But I think if it goes 5-7, and you at least get an SEC win or two in there, I think even still the majority of the 15 guys you currently have committed are staying. But like you said, that would obviously very much hurt you with these other 5-star guys in the West Coast, other 5-star guys here in the South that you're looking at. I think you mentioned Rakeem Jarrett by name over there, but Matt, I'm going to turn back to you for this one, because Rakeem Jarrett they had Brian Dorn, I can't remember how you say his last name, but a guy of 247 Sports who I believe is an area analyst of the Washington D.C. area, kind of that northeast kind of area over there for 247 Sports. He made a crystal ball flip prediction of LSU to Tennessee for Rakeem Jarrett, and then Jarrett sits down and does an interview, I believe, with the guys over at Rivals. I don't think it was a 247 interview, but he did an interview where he talked about his commitment to LSU, and he says that he is committed to LSU, and that's it. Like, I'm not changing my mind. I'm committed to LSU, and that's it. How much stock do you put into what he says? Because obviously, guys can say that and then obviously come out and flip their commitment, the next day or next week or next month. But was that how much do you believe Rakeem Jarrett's comments there, and what do you think about how much does that game affect him? I'm just kind of gauging your overall, I guess, feel and temperature on the Rakeem Jarrett and Tennessee situation right now.
There's a lot of Tennessee in Rakeem Jarrett's camp. I've talked about that a good bit before. Mm-hmm. I don't believe I've interviewed Rakeem twice, one time on the phone, one time in person. He's a tough guy to read. He shocked everybody when he committed to LSU. I don't think he's going to give anything to tip his hand. I think he really does like LSU. I think as his season goes on, I think it may be harder for him to say that he's going to get back down to LSU, and maybe I don't know that he's going to be able to get back down there. Who knows if he's going to be able to get back to Tennessee? They play a national schedule. I would still say that Tennessee is a safe pick right now with Rakeem Jarrett, but he's so hard to read. I wouldn't put a lot of stock into that. I mean, it's just, yeah, I don't know if I was going to leave one job for another job and it was kind of up in limbo, that I would say anything about leaving the one job first. So that's kind of where I get about that. I think Rakeem's so focused on his season, and that's everybody I talk to around him. I don't think you're going to get a whole lot out of him right now. But coming back to Tennessee after committing to LSU, the coaches have prioritized him. There's a really big opportunity there. I still think Tennessee's going to be a safe pick for him. Maybe not the pick, but maybe he does end up at LSU. But I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock into that. I really wouldn't.
It's important to point out we talked about Rakeem last week, and we're saying we didn't think we'd hear anything on his decision flip until after the season anyway. I still think the one place he's not going is LSU. I feel like that's the one place you can rule out. And I may be dead wrong, but everything that I've seen, I don't think he's going to go to LSU. I think he is one of the players that Georgia State loss probably resonated with and was important with. But, again, we talked last week. We didn't expect to hear anything at all out of Rakeem until after the season anyway, so I'm not really surprised. I'm also not surprised he's saying he's going to LSU because he doesn't want people to bother him until his season's over. I think one of the things we've heard from his coach is he wanted to commit to go ahead and get people to leave him alone. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't surprise me that he wants to, that he would say something like this, just trying to get people to leave him alone, get him through the season. I think he's still a flip candidate, but Tennessee's going to have to look respectable to get him. I do think he's one of the guys that this loss probably hurt our standing with a bit.
Brandon, let me ask you this, and Matt, you can obviously feel free to chime in too, but I was thinking, kind of based off our conversation just a little bit ago about what is this weekend, how does that affect recruiting? If you're a recruit, Brandon, if you're one of these high-profile 4 or 5-star guys that Tennessee's targeting, and they've been selling, hey, we need you to come in here and help us continue to turn this thing around. We're not going to be able to do it without you. We need someone of your caliber to come in and be on this roster to help us get to where we want to be. If you watched Saturday's game, if you're a recruit and you watched it at all, I know a lot of these guys are probably on visits or didn't spend time with the family. I don't know how really tuned in they were. They probably saw it. If nothing else, they at least saw the score and said, wow, that was unexpected. But if they were actually watching the game, or if they went back and watched highlights or saw any commentary on Twitter or any social media stuff, I mean, they had to have questions about looking at the defensive side of the ball. These guys are not lining up correctly on multiple occasions. Pruitt can say what he wants to. It looked like there were effort issues still out there. I don't care if he's saying effort. I think when he said in his press conferences that effort wasn't the main issue, I don't think he's saying effort wasn't an issue. I think he was more saying execution was the worst issue more than anything else. But there were definitely some times I saw out there, especially in the second half, where effort seemed to be a problem. If you're a recruit, does what you saw on Saturday, does it make you question this coaching staff's ability to, galvanize a team? Does it make you question the staff's ability to develop? I'm not leaning one way or the other. I'm more just wanting to ask a question here and answer. Brandon, do you, and like I said, Matt, feel free to chime in too later on, but Brandon, does Saturday's game make you as a recruit say, kind of second guess yourself and second guess, maybe this coaching staff and what their ability is, and can they actually get it done at Tennessee, or is it as you said earlier, you just want to see the season play out? You're not going to look maybe as much into this one game.
Nathaniel, I think if I'm a recruit, I am definitely. I'll put it like this: if I'm a recruit, I have enough question of what, and if I watch this game, I have enough question of what happened here that I'm watching or recording the BYU game. If I'm a recruit, I want to see how this team responds. I want to go, was this just a catastrophic lapse by a team, coaches included, or is this going to happen again? Because if I'm an elite recruit, if I'm a Darnell Washington or I'm a Noah Sewell, I've got teams that want me to come play that are going to compete for and win national championships. They are serious about playing for national titles. I'm not passing up on that opportunity if this is a team who's going to win or if this is and go play for a team who is losing the games they're paying somebody $1 million to come beat them. Mm-hmm. It's just, and I think more than the recruits are asking what happened on Saturday, because it was clear that it was. I think it's fair to question the coaching staff. I think it's fair to question the effort of the players, and I don't normally contradict something that a coach says, but Jeremy Pruitt saying that he wasn't really sure effort was the main problem, I'm calling BS. That team didn't want it at all. And if I'm a recruit, that troubles me. If I'm a fan, that troubles me. If I'm a recruit, it troubles me because why is this team not playing hard for their coach? First, why is this team this flat for their coach if I'm a recruit? And why do they look this bad? Why in the first game of the season, after you've had all off season to prepare, this is the one game that you don't have any excuse for not being ready to play. There's no excuse to be flat and not ready to play in your opener. None. For any coach anywhere in football, you should see teams that know their game plan and are ready to go the first week of the season no matter what. And if I'm a recruit, that bothers me. That makes me wonder what went on here, because this is not the same message that I'm getting. What I saw was not what I've been recruited on, and that's confusing. And as a recruit and as a fan, why are these guys not playing hard? Why are they not busting it? Why are they not out here laying it on the line for the power tee on the side of their helmet and for the 100,000 people in the stands and for the coach that's got them going? So, yeah, I mean, if I'm a recruit, I have serious questions, and I'm watching the BYU game to go, did something happen? Or is this really who they are? Because right now, Tennessee can't come out and stink it up against BYU. That it is really important they don't come stink it up against BYU. If they get hammered by BYU and look like they did against Georgia State, it's going to be problems for the team, and it's going to be problems on the recruiting trail. That needs to be an anomaly.
I don't think I could have said it much better. I agree. This past weekend needs, like you said, it needs to be an anomaly. It needs to be a fluke. It needs to be whatever word you want to use. And I talked about this. I actually have written 2 columns, since the loss. I wrote one late Saturday night that ended up, kind of making the rounds on Sunday, and then wrote one again today. We're recording this on Monday night. Wrote one again on Monday afternoon. But I mean, Darrell Taylor called Saturday's game an eye-opener, a wake-up call. He called it both. My thing is, like I said, we're going to kind of go a little bit into some football talk, and then I'll circle back around, Matt, and ask you a question here about
I'd like to cover a little bit on this one, too.
Yeah, but
I want in this line as well.
Yeah, we'll do this then. But he called it an eye-opener and a wake-up call, and the column I wrote, because it just struck me. And I get it. Maybe he was. I don't think Darrell Taylor was talking so much about himself, because I mean he's been here since 2015. He's experienced some pretty bad moments in Tennessee football. He experienced collapses against Oklahoma and Florida in 2015. He experienced the meltdown of that 2016 season. He experienced the historically bad just season in general in 2017, and then he also experienced all the blowouts in 2018, and specifically the ending of last season. But it made me think, how many more wake-up calls does this team need? Because the players on this roster, the still majority of them, 75 to 80%, maybe it's just 70%, but still it's a large majority of this team. Well over 2/3 of this team were on the roster last year when they got blown out 50-17 for a second straight year to Missouri, and then they went to Nashville and just got embarrassed by Vanderbilt. How are those 2 games not wake-up calls? This whole offseason, I mean, I think it was maybe right after the game against Vanderbilt and Garantano, with Met the Media. If it wasn't then, it was sometime in the spring. But he essentially said, the message to the team that the team's going to preach this whole off season is if you don't want to be here, get out. And he didn't say those words verbatim, but it was essentially of, if you're not wanting to stick around and help your teammates and help your team get better and yourself get better, then leave. And I was genuinely surprised, I've said this multiple times, that we didn't see more guys transfer off the roster than what we did this offseason. I counted up earlier, I think there were 7 guys who transferred off the team, and obviously you also had a decent amount of medical retirements and stuff, which was very unfortunate. That wasn't guys transferring though, but you had Drew Richmond, Eli Wolf, Austin Smith. You had Latrell Williams go the JUCO route. You had Marco Osborne, Will McBride, and then in fall camp you had Malik Gray transfer to a junior college as well. To my knowledge, that's it. I don't think I forgot anybody. To my knowledge,
I don't think so either.
As far as guys who transferred, I fully expect there to be. I guess technically you'd say Cortez Sapp transferred. He decided to go to the NFL, but I was not shocked that he didn't come back. But to me, Darrell Taylor calling this game a wake-up call. There should have. There were multiple. Or at least there should have been multiple wake-up calls before Saturday. I don't understand how Saturday even happened. This team should have been awake. The alarm should have gone off months ago. They should have been awake. They should have been hitting the snooze button, apparently, like a lot of the players did, because it wasn't every single player. Like one of you said earlier, we don't want to sit here and just call out a bunch of players and do that, 'cause that's not going to help anybody. It's not going to make y'all feel good listening. It's not going to make us feel good. It's not going to make the team feel good, or any of the any of the representatives, the media department listening. It's not going to make anybody feel good sitting there calling out specific players. But there obviously were players on Saturday who you could tell were giving effort, were giving their all. You could obviously point out to Jajuan Jennings when Trey Smith was out there. And I thought really the freshmen who were out there too you could tell were giving a lot of effort. But there were definitely times during the game where you're wondering, okay, where's the passion here? And part of that was because of execution. The execution was off, and that's going to throw you off. And it's just, guys, I don't really know if I had a point in this, just more than just a rant. But it just, to me, it just, how many more wake-up calls? Just, how's this team not awake? How is this team not, as you said, Brandon, how are they not fired up and prepared and ready for the first game? I know it was against a team that went 2-10 and is a Sun Belt team and has been playing football for a decade now. They've been in a football program since 2010. That's it. This is their 10th year of football, period, as a college. So I can get maybe not being as tuned in the first half, but how do you not come out in halftime in the second half and play with your head on fire? I just don't understand that. That, to me, I can understand coming out flat in the first half because it's against a team that you thought was going to be crappy, that you're supposed to go out there and win. But when you're tied at 14 at halftime to this team, and they've been beating you pretty consistently at the lines of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, I don't know how you don't come out in the second half and not feel re-energized and ready to come out and just lay some lumber on some guys. That's what I don't understand.
Look at your upperclassmen. I mean, you mentioned Darrell Taylor, and I'm not going to call a bunch of people out. I'm going to call Darrell Taylor out. Nigel Warrior came up in the press conference right after Darrell Taylor, and Darrell Taylor, I felt like we needed to watch more film. I felt like we weren't really prepared. I felt like we could have prepared better. We weren't ready for this game. We needed the wake-up call, da-da-da-da-da. And he goes to sit down. Nigel Warrior comes up, and the next man up says, "We've seen everything they're going to do." He said, we saw everything they ran. We saw it all 100 times. We knew exactly what they were going to do. Now, why would you follow another captain up and directly contradict his statement? You look at Taylor. Darrell Taylor had a bad game. He had a really bad game. He failed repeatedly to cover the option. He was out of position trying to rush the passer. He never got home rushing the passer. There were several times that he got himself juked out of his shoes in the open field because he didn't break down right. Maybe Darrell Taylor needed to watch more film, and maybe Darrell Taylor needed to have his head on straight, and maybe Darrell Taylor needed to be woke up. But some of his teammates, one of the other captains, one of the other seniors, was paying attention and was awake during those video sessions, those film sessions, and those meetings, and it just wasn't able to get done. Now, I didn't see a lot of passion. And to the point you asked me earlier about if I was a recruit and I saw this game, what would I do? And they were telling me, we need you to turn this thing around. I would say as a recruit, well, they're certainly correct in that statement. That is very, very honest and very, very accurate. They need me to turn this around because with most of the guys they've got right now, it doesn't look like they're going to. And that's from what I saw on the field. But you made another interesting point there, which was a lot of the freshmen played well. A lot of the guys that Pruitt has brought in played well. Henry Tuotuo played well. I thought Eric Gray, besides getting blown up on a couple of blitz pickups, played well. Wanye Morris, aside from inexplicably moving him to guard, which I don't understand, I don't put that on Wanye, I put that on the coaches. He's a left tackle. That's what he was at Grayson. That's what he's going to be at UT. I don't understand making him a guard. It wasn't that he couldn't get to that man. He took the wrong assignment and let a guy go through, but he was a true freshman playing out of position when there was no need for him to be out of position. But Wanye had a good game. One of the only upperclassmen, we're hard on these upperclassmen. I'm very hard on them right now. One guy that we absolutely positively have got to exception from all of this is Jajuan Jennings. Yes. Why is this man not the captain of this football team? Why?
I will say his on-field persona makes you say that, but he's not been a saint off the field.
That's true. Yeah.
I don't want to go too much more detail, but obviously there's been plenty of public stuff over the past couple of years of I guess mostly in 2017. But I will say I do agree with you, Brandon. He's a guy that he is a vocal leader and a guy who I think definitely garners a ton of respect from his teammates. I'm not trying to say anything. I'm not trying to disparage him at all. I have a lot of respect for Jajuan, but I do think, and I think Jason Swain made this point on his show on Monday morning. He's a guy that while you respect him on the field, he's made a fair amount of decisions off the field where guys say, I respect you, but I don't think it's to the same degree that it could be. So I agree with what you're saying, Brandon. On the field, you would definitely say yes, this guy needs to be a captain. But there's plenty of other reasons why I think you could say maybe not, and you could also say the same thing, not the same thing. You could say a similar story about Trey Smith. He should be a captain on this team, but he's been on the sideline for so long because of obviously his unfortunate health issues. He's definitely a leader. I mean, he really is. But it's hard to lead from the sideline. You look at that 2016 team. Look at that 2016 team and some of the leaders you had in that team with Jalen Reeves-Maben and Cam Sutton. And those guys were. Reeves-Maben was out for the rest of the year after the Florida game. Cam Sutton was out for, I think, 6 games in that season, 5 or 6 games in that season. And you could tell the leadership took a big hit in the middle of that season because the guys who were nominated as preseason as permanent captains, which I don't think was a good move, but guys are nominated as permanent captains for the whole year. You had 2 of them out for significant chunks, and then at one point Kamara was out with a slight injury. So there was a game, I believe it might have been the South Carolina game.
It was.
Where you come out the midfield, and it's only Josh Dobbs actually dressed out, and it's the other 3 guys are in street clothes or on crutches or whatever at the midfield for the coin toss. I mean, that was just. It's hard to lead from the sideline. So I think Trey Smith could fit in the category of a guy who is a definite leader, but he's just not on the field, and it's very hard to be a leader when you're not in the game and not being able to participate with your teammates.
This team at this point is grasping for leaders. And I think you can afford to say, well, Jajuan has had some off-field issues in his past, and we don't necessarily want to have him be the leader of this team if you have other guys that are stepping up. But right now, you've got 2 of your captains gave completely different stories and accounts of how this game happened, one right after the other one.
Yeah.
And I'm to the point of going, look, if this team wants to win football games, the 2 guys on this team, I'll say 3. There are 3 guys on this football team that if I'm a teammate, I don't want to have to look in the eye and explain to them why I didn't give my all. One is Jajuan Jennings, because he works harder than anybody out there. Jajuan Jennings leaves it all on the field every game. And as a teammate, that is not a dude that I want to have to come say something to me or that I want to have to answer to for why I'm dogging it. Because he's not going to let you. You can't find fault with him. The second one's Trey Smith. Because, I really want to be here. Really? I'm risking my life to do this. period, the end. Trey Smith is trying to find a way to play football even at the risk of his life with the condition that he's had. And he wants to be out there so badly, and he wants to play for Tennessee so badly that he's willing to run that risk to get on the field and play his butt off and be good every play. Look that man in the eye and give him your excuse for not wanting to play 100%. And the third one's Nigel Warrior to me. Warrior is the only guy in the press conference that I felt gave the appropriate response, which was upset. Nigel Warrior was upset that they lost this game. He was upset that it had gone the way that it did. He was angry. He was trying to figure out what had happened. And he was upset at himself, upset at his teammates. You could see it. Warrior was the only guy who actually showed me the reaction. Everybody else was kind of disturbingly level-headed. You don't need to be level-headed after the worst loss in the history of your program. You need to be upset. And I think those are if you're looking for leaders, and this team, whether they realize they are or not, is looking for leaders, those are the three guys you look to. And if I'm a recruit, if I see this team hitching their wagon to these three guys, and this is what I want Tennessee football to look like on the field, those three guys, it's different than what a lot of the other guys played. You hitch your wagon to those three guys playing hard, leaving it all on the field, playing their guts out. That T and that orange jersey matter to them. That's what I want my freshmen playing like. That's who I want my freshmen looking up to. That's who I want my recruits coming in to look up to.
Can I go back to the first here for just a second where we started this at? Nathaniel, you made a really good point. Talking about these guys, 60-70% of these guys are here 2015, 2016. So you start looking, I go back to 2016 here, should have lost to App State on that Thursday night. Mm-hmm. Should have lost. Come out flat. Should have got beat, plain and simple. Top 10 team in the country. You should have got beat in Neyland Stadium that night. An opportunity to show that Tennessee was back for the first time in years, the most hype around the program in years again, and you come out flat as a flitter. Then you win, you get new life, you go thrash Virginia Tech eventually. You beat them 45-24. You're 2-0, and then you come back home and you can erase everything and all the doubts, and you let Ohio keep it within a 9-point game. We all know the end game of that, the rest of that season, how it played out. 9-4, whatever. Move forward. 2017, you come out, you get back in, you win a good game against Georgia Tech on the road in a neutral environment. That same season, you play UMass and let them keep it within 4 points at home.
And that was a bad UMass team.
Yes, it was. You play Southern Miss and let them keep it within 14 points at home. And then flash forward to 2018, the worst season in Tennessee history. Yeah, you beat UTEP 24-0 at home. Okay, congratulations. You let Charlotte keep it within 11, coming off a very tough stretch, but you let Charlotte keep it within 11. This game has been coming for these guys. As bad as that sounds, it's been on the brink of being there. I'm not going to say Tennessee fans should have expected it Saturday, because nobody should have expected that. But it's been there, and with these guys, that sense of urgency, that sense of let's finish this, let's get it over with, let's go over here, watch our highlights on the Jumbotron, and kick back and have a good time, has never happened for them. Which leads me to believe the entire thing with Pruitt and what he talked about, effort and execution, at the end of the day against a school like Georgia State, and I'm not taking anything away from Georgia State, they did what they came to do. But effort and execution go hand in hand to a pretty good extent. When you're accustomed to that, it's hard to get over it. And sometimes you can't flip that switch. And the entire thing was systemic, which makes me wonder how far this goes with this junior, senior leadership, because
is this a culture thing?
Is it a culture thing? And I don't want to go down that road, but if I come to a press conference after a loss like that, I'm probably giving a yes, no answer to every single question, maybe a head nod. Maybe I don't know how you handle that. And like Brandon said, you look guys like Jajuan Jennings in the face and, want to be buddies with him at the end of the night. So I got off track earlier on the first question of the podcast, and it was kind of going in this same direction, but it comes back to this weekend and how these guys are going to be able to look those guys like Jajuan Jennings, Trey Smith in the face and continue to do this. Is the effort going to change? Is the execution going to change? What's it going to take? Has this game, it's been coming, like I said, like I kind of evidenced, that there have been multiple close calls. And every year you see Division I programs have a close call. You just heard Tennessee had multiple close calls in a 3-year span. So it's been there. So is this maybe it was really eye-opening to Darrell Taylor. Maybe it did open as I was like, oh, we've had this happen before, but we've always came out on top. Maybe this does flip a switch, but it's got to come back again. And I'm sorry I got off track earlier with that other question, but it's got to come back to this weekend for me.
One more. Well,
surely.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
Surely, if you lose this kind of game and it is a wake-up call and it is flipping a switch, surely your team circles the wagons and comes back and is upset about this and angry and embarrassed and focused and ready to play, right? Like there surely wouldn't be someone or potentially a group of people within the team who thought this was amusing, right? Like there's no way that would happen.
Well, you have to think, like Nathaniel said too, that Missouri and Vanderbilt months ago should create such a unsettling feeling in your stomach all off season that you missed a bowl, that you let your buddies that went out the door, guys that you're never going to get to play with again, go out a loser and get embarrassed. Stomped. So I don't know. Maybe Tennessee did need this. Obviously, the fan base didn't need it, but it's been there. I thought about that earlier in the day and had this stuff looked up for if the question did come up, but it's been on the brink of happening, and it's been with these guys, and they weren't able to flip the switch. They tried. I believe they tried to flip the switch. They went down. They forced a fumble. On 2 drives, they looked like the superior team, but then they kind of got punched in the mouth again, and something didn't go the right way, and it was over, as we all saw. So I don't know. It's going to be. It all comes back to this weekend, and I'm not going to put program expectations on this weekend, but it's a very important weekend recruiting wise for this football team and for this coaching staff.
Yeah. I don't think that could have been put any better to kind of finish up the podcast here on what I think which should be a little bit more of a positive note, because from everything I've seen, from what little I've kind of looked into recruiting stuff after the game, it seemed like Matt, and you would probably know because you've probably at least had a chance to reach out to some of the guys a little bit. I saw you for our recruiting reports Twitter handle retweeting some stuff and tweeting out stuff from some of the guys who visited this weekend, but. From what you've been able to gather, I don't know who all you've been able to talk to and everything, who was here on the weekend. Obviously, Lyneth Whitehead was here on an official visit. You had several unofficial visitors. A lot of the Tennessee commits were in town. I believe the Mariota kids were here, the Ojulari and Bailey, but you also had, I think, Jalen Hyatt was in town. But you also had some 2021 kids and stuff who I think were in town. So, Matt, even with this being just a historically bad game for Tennessee, it seemed by all accounts that these guys still enjoyed their visit, even though the atmosphere at Neyland Stadium wasn't what it could have or should have been, because I can't blame fans for not wanting to show up to that game, and I can't blame fans for leaving early after what they saw in the first half. So even with all of that, it seemed like the visits and stuff still went well. So I'm curious, what your takeaways have been from what all you've heard and who you've talked to from the visits this weekend.
Brandon's been in touch with Jalen Hyatt. Things are perfectly fine there. Mordecai McDaniel is fine. Jay Hardy, he always enjoys Tennessee visit. There's a lot of Tennessee in his camp too. Obviously, he's been here for good years and bad years, so it's not going to affect him. Keyshawn, Harrison, those guys, they're the two guys that are really the leaders of this class on each side of the ball, respectively, and they're locked in. They're not going anywhere. It's not going to be the end all be all. Other guys were on visits. They weren't just sitting in front of their TV. So, maybe they catch a game recap and maybe like, something did drastically happen, which leads back to the point of Brandon. I'm definitely going to have the BYU game on record. I'm going to see what happened. But, the one thing I told our premium subscribers and try to give everybody a chance to cool down. I didn't take right to the internet right off because, everybody else was. But the thing I try to tell our premium subscribers, and I had multiple people just call my phone. I was trying to watch the Auburn and Oregon game, and I probably spent the first half outside on the phone well into the third quarter. If I'm Jeremy Pruitt, I know one thing I do well, and it's recruit. And he recruits his tail off. You can't question that about him. He's got a recruiting staff. They recruit well. Now, I'm not going to talk about how they coach, whatever. That's for you guys to discuss as fans. You can hold your own reservations on that. But this staff does recruit at a high level. And I told guys, if I'm Jeremy Pruitt, my message is to the Noah Sewells, to the Eric Gilberts, and I'm going to them with it. Do you see why I need you now? I can't do this now. I can't do this without guys like you. I have upperclassmen. Look what my freshmen did, because there were some freshmen that played well. You can show what Henry Toa did. You can show what Wanye Morris. I thought Darnell Wright had a really good game for his first game and first really live action against anybody else. You can show this, you can sell this to guys, but you really have to, for me, I think Jeremy Pruitt's going to have to, another big point going into this weekend is if he's going to turn this on a positive note, if the upperclassmen do not respond like we've talked about, because we've all saw the depth chart. We know who's playing on Saturday. We know who's starting. Ben McKee had put out what he had earlier. I guess you had retweeted that, Nathaniel's probably how I saw that. But if Jeremy Pruitt doesn't get the response he needs on Saturday, then his response, I firmly believe, has to be to trot out about 17 or 18 of his guys in the second half and say, okay, I said on national TV last year that if I didn't get the work and the effort, I would play my guys. So does he live and die by that sword? I think he's probably going to have to if that effort's not there in the first half and he finds himself in a hole to BYU or in a dogfight with BYU. Now, if the effort's there, you leave the guys in. But if it's not, I think that is the one response and the one way that you hold this class together and maybe salvage some of the fan base, because if you show that you're a man of your word, I think it goes a long way with the Tennessee fan base. So it's going to be a lot of so many questions to be answered. But I think that's one way that you show that you really mean what you really practice what you preach, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And if you don't see the effort, I think Jeremy Pruitt really might trot 17 or 18 of his guys out there and make a point. And that's a selling point to recruits too.
Well, and you've got to. I mean, if you want to keep the fans, if you want to keep the recruits, if you want to be able to use your game day experience as something to bring in recruits, which is maybe one of Tennessee's strongest recruiting pitches. If you bring a recruit to a sold-out checkered kneeling game, they're nothing like that in the country, especially if it's at night. If that's a night game, that is a one-of-a-kind experience. If you want to be able to use that with recruits, you got to have the fan base engaged, and I think the fans could take it a lot better if you lost, but you lost fighting your tail off with a bunch of young kids. If you've got a bunch of young guys out here that are talented, that you recruited, that you brought in, that like Matt said are your guys, and they're out there playing their butts off, doing everything they can to scratch and claw and get a win and come up short because they're gassed or they don't have the depth behind them or it's just too much. That's losing that way is one thing. What we saw Saturday is something different. I can sell, hey, we need you. Look how close we came with how little we've got, and if I can add you in, you're one of the missing pieces that I need to be able to push us over the top. If we can play like that, with that kind of hunger and that kind of fight, with that kind of talent, and now they have some experience, and I can bring you in, I can sell that to a recruit to come in and see success. It's hard to sell what you saw Saturday. And so I'm with Matt. I think if Pruitt doesn't see the effort that he needs to see, it's time to put guys on benches, and if it means play the kids and play his guys, play the kids and play his guys as long as they're playing hard.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I'll be very curious to see what happens. Hopefully, for all fans' sake, for Tennessee's sake, and for our sake, because it just for a moment of peek behind the curtain here, it obviously affects our bottom line, our product of what we do if Tennessee sucks. Yeah. I mean, it's one thing. It's one thing immediately after that game. That Saturday night and Sunday, and even part of today as we're recording this. People are kind of angry watching, angry reading, angry listening to stuff. But I mean, I've seen it firsthand. I've been with RTI since November of 2015. I've seen firsthand what happens when apathy sets in. I mean, you kind of saw it in the tail end of that 2016 season. After the South Carolina loss, there was just apathy. I mean, until they got a chance for Tennessee to get into the Sugar Bowl, and then people thought it was still not to the degree because Tennessee had been eliminated from the SEC East, and then that Vanderbilt loss happened, and that got people angry. And then after the 2016 season happened, you get the bowl game victory, and then you lost a lot of your premier guys like Dobbs and Kamara and Malone and JRM and Cam Sutton and Derek Barnett. After that happened, that offseason heading in 2017 season, aside from the talk of Butch Jones being on the hot seat, apathy had set in quite a bit, and that was not our most productive. That was actually my first season taking over as editor was that summer. So I put out a ton of content and help our site be okay. But if it wasn't for, just to be honest, it wasn't for me and the guys I had at the time helping out and just plugging away and churning out a ton of content, we wouldn't have done nearly as well, and we would have probably struggled in 2017, but we didn't. And then you had the coaching search, so that obviously did help. But I'm just like I said, moment of clarity, moment of honesty. We want Tennessee to do well, not just from all of us obviously grew up as Vol fans. From a business standpoint, I would say all three of us are very much hoping Tennessee can turn things around, because business is always better. I mean, Jason Swain said this as much as too. And Tony Basilio, anybody who does any sort of Tennessee media will tell you, business is always better when the team is good. We don't actively root for the team to suck, because it's going to hurt our bottom line and our paycheck and our wallet. So I want to get that out of the way, and I'm glad we kind of ended this on a little bit more of a positive note, talking about
yeah.
Things still went well this weekend on a recruiting perspective, at least from the visits. The guys who were there, like you said, Matt, Brandon, and Hyatt, all the other guys that were there that were committed or aren't committed, who are still big targets. They all seem to have a good time. They all, I think the staff's been pretty honest with them about where Tennessee sits, and obviously he's been hoping that this season is going to be much more improved, and it still can be. It still
can be, yeah.
Right, it's not looking very good, but it still obviously can be. It's one game. It's the first game of the season. There's 11 more. It's 11 more chances to go out and improve, but I do want to end the podcast on a little bit of a positive note there, because it's been mostly negative, and rightly so. We're not just being doom and gloom for the sake of being doom and gloom. It was not good Saturday. But I'll go ahead and end the podcast here, and thank you all for tuning in. You can visit us, RockyTopInsider.com. We're on Rocky Top Insider on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube as well. Be sure to check out our YouTube because we have a lot of stuff on there. This podcast will be on there as well. Maybe bringing you all hopefully some new stuff here in the coming week or two, as we look to kind of expand our coverage, hopefully for the season. But check out RockyTopInsider.com for, like I said, the two columns I mentioned earlier. For some other stuff we'll have come up this week, and we'll be obviously previewing BYU, looking at how important this game is going to be this weekend. But I'm gonna hold off on promoting RTI a little too much more, because obviously we do plenty of other RTI stuff. I'm gonna let you guys plug some stuff at Vol Recruiting Reports, because I know you have a lot of stuff coming on the wire. You mentioned some of the premium stuff you have going on. So Matt and Brendan, take it away. Let everybody know what is happening at Vol Recruiting Reports.
Yeah, so I told you guys earlier, talk to the premium subscribers today. Our premium subscribers get a lot of stuff earlier, probably about a week earlier if I really have it my way. Most of the time I do have it my way, so that's nice. But sometimes stuff does need to be let out a little earlier. But our premium subscribers always get the stuff early. It's $2 a month. Get over there, give it a try. I told our premium subscribers on Saturday late, when everything was in meltdown, hey, stay with us. It's $2 a month. If there's one thing that's going to fix this program, or has a really good chance of fixing this program, it is recruiting. And they all kind of agreed. And recruiting is going to be the lifeline of your program regardless. But, depending on what happens this Saturday, it's going to get very interesting. I told Brandon and Dale earlier today that, we focus solely on recruiting for the most part. We do cover the team a little bit, but nothing like Nathaniel does. We're probably going to have the most fun job in the program if this thing does turn into a downward spiral. So, because recruiting is going to get wacky, I'm sure. So, $2 a month, check it out. Stay with us. 3 games this Friday that we were at. Two games this upcoming Friday will be at Knoxville Catholic and Innsworth. And then Brandon's going to go down and see Laneath Whitehead. There's so many guys in the Knoxville Catholic Innsworth game that we're going to have to take 2 guys to try to accomplish all that we want. Brandon and I are also working on some other stuff moving forward that we won't talk about now, but could be a good way to bring you guys continuous coverage from a lot of different outlets, a lot of different geographical locations, and a lot of credible folks. So just stay tuned with that, and get over and just check our website out and at volrecruitingreports.org. Check us out on Twitter @_VR2_, and you can find Brandon at Brandon_VR2. So that's where we're going to be at. Facebook and Instagram is just Vol Recruiting Reports. So you guys stay with us, and we're going to be here for the long haul. So.
Well, guys, I think that'll do it for this podcast. Went a little long, but I knew this one was going to be a little bit of a longer one. We had a lot to cover, a lot of emotion to get out for you guys. Neither one of you guys have really had a chance to kind of vent like Ben McKee and I did on Saturday after the game, because he and I had obviously a reaction podcast. So I wanted to let you guys have a chance to, talk about the game a little bit. So I knew this was going to be a little bit longer of one, but we'll have another RTI and VR2 recruiting podcast hopefully later this week, and we'll talk a little bit more, kind of just recruiting specific. I may try to turn that one into a mailbag podcast.
Yeah, we need to do a mailbag for sure.
Yeah, I've had Get Bent and Vol on Twitter ask me the same question for about a week now. We haven't had a chance to address on the podcast because we've had a lot of other stuff happen. So we can get to your question again, Get Bent and Vol. So
Get Bent Vol has we did a premium thread this afternoon, and Get Bent Vol has kept that thread alive. He has carried that thread question-wise. We have tried to answer every one of them, and we love every one of them. Keep them coming. But he has been the lifeline of that thread tonight. So we definitely need to do a recruiting mailbag for him.
Yeah, when we did RTI Premium here at Rocky Top Insider, he was always one of the more active participants. So
he's got good questions too. Yeah, great questions. I always
appreciate him. He'll chime in with the regular Rocky Top Insider mailbag too. So we appreciate him. We appreciate all of you listening. We're not just going to sit here and brag on Get Bent and Vol. All of you who listen, whether you interact with us or not, if you're just a silent participant just listening every week, we appreciate you, and share the show. Let everybody let other people know about it. The only way we can grow and get have a chance to give you guys more content is if we continue to grow it and you guys continue to share stuff. So please, and not obviously not just Rocket Top Insider, get VR2 stuff out there. That's one reason that I reached out to them about partnering well over a month ago, is because I think these guys do great work. I think they deserve to have a platform, so I wanted to help out with that and hopefully, help them grow and help them get the recognition that they deserve. But go ahead and sign off here for Brandon and Matt. I'm Nathaniel Rutherford of RocketTopInsider.com. This has been another episode of the RTI and VR2 podcast.